Hey girls, Tiffany Dawn here, and a question that I've been hearing a lot is, how do I find a mentor and what do I look for in a mentor? And I love that you're asking this question because I am a huge fan of finding a mentor. I just think that it is one of the best things you can do for your personal growth and also for your spiritual growth. I know my mentors have made such a difference in my life, helping me find freedom from things that I didn't know how to get free from, helping me grow closer to God. And so I'm all about this. So first let's talk about what to look for in a mentor, and then let's get into how to actually find a mentor. So mentors are not perfect people who have it all together. They're people who you look at their life and you think, wow, I could learn a lot from this person. I could learn a lot from her walk with God. I really admire her, the way she loves God and loves others, and I feel like there's a lot I could learn from her. And you want somebody who you connect with, who you feel comfortable talking with them and being really honest with them, so you can share like the deepest, the hardest things you're working through and feel safe sharing that with them. And I think that's really important. One other thing to look for in a mentor is someone who's kind of further along their journey with God than you are. Now, if you're a teenager or in college or your early 20s, I would recommend finding someone who's older than you too, because just with life experience comes a lot of wisdom. But the older you get, the less it needs to be someone older than you physically, and the more it's just someone who's kind of a little further along in their God journey than you are. So now let's move on to how to actually find a mentor. And I have 6 steps for you. So tip number 1 is just start praying. Ask God, like, Lord, would you provide someone who can be a mentor for me? And it might take a little while, and don't get discouraged because sometimes it does take a while to find that person you really connect with, but just start praying and asking God for that. Tip number 2 is ask around, or really just look around. Keep your eye out, keep your ear out for people who you're like, oh, she seems really awesome. She seems like somebody I could learn a lot from. And you can also ask people for ideas, like ask your parents or your youth pastor or your women's ministry leader or a teacher or a counselor. Ask them if they have any ideas of somebody who might be a good fit for you as a mentor. Tip number 3 is ask the person. And this is where it can get a little intimidating because sometimes we are hoping that the person will just come up and ask us like, hey, can I be your mentor? And every once in a while that might happen, but for the most part that doesn't happen. It is on us to take the initiative and say, hey, would you be my mentor? And to kind of put ourselves out there that way. And so let's kind of talk through this process a little bit. The first thing I would do when you're asking the person is don't put too much pressure on it. You want it to be a low pressure situation because that person might be thinking, what do I have to offer? How could I be anybody's mentor? I don't know enough. And a lot of women feel that way. And they really do have things to offer, but they just don't realize it. So asking instead like, hey, I just see a lot of things I really admire in your life and I feel like there's a lot I could learn from you. And I was wondering, could we just like go get coffee a couple times so I can get to know you more and kind of like learn from your life a little bit? And then if you guys get coffee and you find that you don't connect, there's no pressure to keep going. You haven't said, would you be my mentor forever? Instead, it's like, okay, we didn't connect. But if you go get coffee and you do really connect, then you can ask her, hey, could we maybe get coffee like once a month and just kind of talk about life? And that's just, again, way less pressure for the person that you're asking. The other thing with asking is the person might say no, and don't take that personally. You never know what's going on in their life. Like, it's probably has nothing to do with you at all, but just where that person is in their life. Some women are just so busy. Maybe they have a bunch of little kids at home. They're trying to work as well. They've got their husband. Like, they're just so busy that they just can't give it the time at this point in their life, and that's okay. And you might find that you ask several people before you find someone who has the time and the energy and the passion to do this. But just trust that God's gonna lead you even when people say no, that can be a form of His guidance. Tip number 4 is plan for the first meeting. So the first time you're gonna get coffee with this person, it's probably gonna also be on you to kind of lead and guide the conversation. Like, the person probably doesn't really know what you want to hear from them or know what you would want them to share. So I think it's important to come with some questions. And you can write them out in your journal. You can even bring your journal to take notes as you're talking if you want to. I've definitely done that before. And just have some questions like things that you would love to hear from her about, questions that you have about your faith or about life or whatever it is. And these don't have to be super deep and personal in the first meeting. I think it's actually really healthy to not make them too deep or too personal if this is the first time you've spent any time with this person one-on-one. Just kind of keep them a little more like, you know, meaningful questions, but maybe not immediately on your first coffee date sharing every detail from your past, you know? And then you can kind of grow into the relationship and see, is this someone I connect with? Is this someone I trust? Do I feel safe with her? And eventually over time kind of let more of your story come out. But I think it's really helpful to plan for that first meeting. Find somewhere you can go that's a quiet enough environment where you can talk, and that's an environment where you're not going to be wondering if other people are eavesdropping on your conversation. And honestly, if you asked her to coffee and if you have the money, if you're working a job, I would recommend that you buy your coffee and hers and just kind of try to be a blessing to her as well. So we'll talk about that now. Tip number 5 is look to be a blessing to that person as well. So find, if you guys do get into a place where you're like, we really connect, we really want to build like this relationship where she can just speak into my life, then also look for ways that you can pour back into her life and that you could be a blessing to her. And that could mean that maybe when you get together, instead of going out for coffee every time, you could like go over to her house and help her cook dinner while you talk. Or maybe on special occasions in her life, you do something to celebrate her, send her a card or a gift, or some ways that you can just kind of be a blessing and kind of pour back into her just a little bit. And lastly, and then just be more open and more honest with her as you go. And when you're going through things that you're confused about, talk with her about them and say, do you have any advice for me? And really listen to her feedback. That doesn't mean you have to do everything she says, but really take her feedback to heart, especially as your relationship grows. And take that advice to heart and say, this is something I should consider. Is this something I agree with or not? Is this something that I should implement in my life or not? And really take that seriously. So girls, I hope that can help. And as always, comment your thoughts down below. If you have a mentor, what helped you find one and what did you look for in a mentor? I would love to hear. Love you girls, and I'll see you next week. Bye.